Hello, One Piece nerds, welcome to another video. Today, let's talk about Wano. I said it right. In the thumbnail and the title, it says it itself. Wano feels like another build-up. So, for a long time, we've been finding Wano a little weird. Everything from starting to from the roles of the Nine-Tailed Scabbards, to the fight between Luffy and Kaido, to fights between the Straw Hats, and everything in between feels a little off. With Big Mom's amnesia, Big Mom going up against Law and Kid instead of Luffy, it feels as though something is wrong. Let's address it. So, I want to start off by saying that if you guys like the content, please make sure to like and subscribe. That helps me out a lot. And enjoy the rest of the video. So, let's talk about Wano a little bit from the weird standpoint stuff. In my last two videos, I've addressed some of the facts that I will be talking about today, not in details. If you guys missed out on the last two, please feel free to check it out. I've got everything in there about Kaido versus Luffy, as well as the fights of the Straw Hat Pirates. So there are still more elements that are needed to be integrated in order for my analysis to be complete, but hear me out. So let's start off with Luffy versus Kaido. We've had 4 rounds, and presumably we think it's over. It doesn't feel right that it's over. It doesn't feel right that no one in Wano gets to see the fight between Luffy and Kaido, and Onigashima just ended up landing slightly close to the Flower Capital, but not really in the Flower Capital, which is not wrong. But we all expected the Onigashima would pass Flower Capital, and people in the Flower Capital would be seeing the fight between Luffy and Kaido, and would see Kaido fall. That would make sure that their will is restored back, and now they can actually believe that Kaido is, dead or lost or defeated. So, moving on from that point, let's talk about Nine-Tailed Scabbards. So the Scabbards feel as though they are the emotional points of Wano. Everyone's been talking about the Scabbards. The Scabbards are the ones who are supposedly going to inherit Oden's will, to save Wano, to, bring back the Kozuki clan, to defeat Orochi, to defeat Kaido, and restore Wano back into his former glory. But it seems as though they haven't done anything at all. Aside from starting the raid on Nigashima, they've done practically nothing. They've went one-on-one against Kaido, 9 versus 1, lost in 10 or 20 minutes, with Kaido not even showing his full potential. And after that, some of them did do some very interesting things. For example, Ashura Doji sacrificed himself to finish off Kanjuro, and then Raizo basically, redeeming himself from that fire with Oden to saving all of the alliance by taking the water from Zunisha and then doing all that. And then we have the last person to talk about, which is honestly he didn't do much, but he did the correct thing that he was supposed to do, Denjiro. He arrived at the right time, what we expected him to do. He came at the last moment to save Hiyori and to finish off Orochi for good. It felt right. It felt definitely right. But aside from that, he's had nothing to do. Maybe Oda has something planned with him, I've said it before, but from what we see in the baseline, what we've seen so far, it's not correct. If they are going to be the emotional points every single time in a single arc, when there is a character that has the emotional point, he or she does something significant so that it feels as though it's their arc. Vivi stopping the whole raid thing, Robin trying to fight back against CP9, Ace accepting the fact that everyone's going to the summit board to save him. Everything feels right. That the emotional point of the arc, the character who has been driving the arc, has, accepted their duty and would do something significant towards ending that arc or reaching that specific goal. As for the Scabbards, they've done nothing of that sort. They haven't had a proper fight with Kaido. They had a proper fight, but they didn't get any upper hand. They didn't do anything significant when it comes to the raid, and well, it feels off. Now, I have another video planned for the Scabbards in details, saying that what they would be doing in the future, what their plan is, what I was planning with them, but that's for another video. Let's move on to the fights with the Straw Hats. In my last video, no, not the last video, the second last video, I've talked about the fact that the Straw Hats didn't get a proper fight. Most of the Straw Hats didn't get a proper fight. Now, what do I mean by proper fight? To emphasize, just to summarize what I said in the last video, I just mean that the fights, when the Straw Hats have fights, they usually have 1-on-1 or 2-to-1 fight against the bad guys or against the antagonists of the arc. Most of them do, at least. But this arc, almost none of them did. Zoro, Sanji, Luffy, Robin, Frankie, Jinbei. Okay, they got 1-on-1 fights. Nami and Usopp got nothing. They've had no sort of... And also Brook. Chopper only had the Oni virus to kill, and that's it. They didn't have a major fight. And even if they did, I'm talking about Jinbei versus Who's Who, Frankie versus Sasaki, it feels as though there wasn't an emotional hurdle. Sanji and Robin got their parts very well done. They've had some sort of a development. They've shown some sort of an advanced skill that they haven't shown us before. So, like, Robin showed skills that she learned throughout this time skip. Sanji overcoming the conflict between him being a human and a robot. Zoro trying to conquer Enma and trying to be the best swordsman again. Luffy overcoming Kaido, awakening Gear 5. All of that sorts. It's okay, but it feels as though the fights weren't good enough. Usually when there's a 1-on-1 fight between Straw Hats, I'm talking about Frankie, Sasaki, Jinbei, Who's Who, they didn't really have to overcome much of a hurdle. It feels, maybe reading one week to week, it feels like that. But now that I'm revisiting it in binge reading, it still feels as though the fight went over quick. They didn't have much of a difficulty. There wasn't much of an emotional point to overcome. They didn't have to show off much of their skills. There wasn't much of a struggle. And towards that extent, I mean. So, why is that? And alongside that, I'm going to be talking about the reactions. So, when the castle was on fire, when Onigashima was on fire, we've seen everyone's reaction. And I feel as though seeing everyone's reactions over 3 to 4 chapters wasn't necessary. Everyone's been mad about it. I've been mad about it as well. But I feel Oda had his reasons to do it. And here's the why. I think the reason why he wanted to make us see all of that reaction is to make us understand the situation is pretty bad, and also the fact that to give us a status report on who is doing well and who is not, who is in the brink of death, and who is somehow surviving. And I feel as though this is another build-up to the next fight. Now, I've been talking about a third force entering after Kaido was defeated, to take on the Straw Hats again, Straw Hat or the Alliance, or take over some other person who will, come in between the fight and try to get something, try to gain something from the fight between Luffy and Kaido. It could be the world government, it could be Blackbeard pirates, it could be Big Mom as well. I'm gonna get to that. Just wait a second. So it feels as though everything feels like a build-up. None of the Straw Hats, most of the Straw Hats, those who didn't have too much of a struggle against the fights, and those who didn't have a proper fight, feel as though they're going to be preparing to take on the other opponents. And the fights were made to be easy, because if Oda's going to start one of the greatest wars after Wano, it has to be a build-up arc. Ever since Punk Hazard, ever since Kingdom 1 has been introduced, ever since Law talked about Doflamingo, everything feels as though the build-up is always towards Wano. But no, we've been wrong all along. The build-up is towards the final arc. Ever since post-time skip, the build-up has been the final arc. Oda's made us believe that the destination is, conquering Wano, but the destination was the final arc itself, finding One Piece. It's always been the goal. And the goal has been set straight ever since Punk Hazard. We've been deceived. We've been deceived by the fact that Wano is going to be the end. And then we're going to get some sort of a break or some sort of an in-between chapters interlude where we see the rest of the world, or we see the Straw Hats going to some place remote or some place very quiet for them to have some sort of an advantage over the others. Maybe get their hands on a poneglyph, maybe get some new skills, maybe get some training arcs, but I don't think that's the case. I think Wano is just another build up for another hype chapter, for another hyped arc. That being the biggest war in One Piece. Now, we all expect the biggest war to happen after Luffy finds One Piece, but that's Oda's story. Maybe there is going to be a war after Luffy finds One Piece, maybe there's going to be a war now, but I think it all comes together. And Wano being like this feels as though that's going to be the case. Maybe the biggest war would be a little like 200 chapters after Wano. Maybe there will be some sort of a build up. Then again, Wano is still used as a build up, as a setting for the final arc. We know that Wano has something major in terms of finding the One Piece. Kaido knows about it, Big Mom knows about it, Wano is special. We all know, we all understand that Wano is special. We don't know what it is, but something in Wano is there that will help Luffy and the others to gain one step ahead of everyone else in the world to finding the One Piece. And I feel as though that indicates that Wano is another build-up arc. And the third force being the world government is not unlikely, since now they're specifically targeting Luffy and they definitely want Rico Robin. And they're going to somehow have to overcome the world government, even though they've had all these casualties. Maybe some of the alliance will come into play. I'll be talking about Sabo and Vivi specifically in a future video because we've been wondering about that as well, and I think I have a decent idea of what it's going to be. So moving on from that point onward, my conclusion to the whole Wano thing is everything that is weird in Wano is that it's just another build-up arc. It's not going to be your typical Luffy fight, Straw Hat fights the bad guys defeated, peace is restored, and we move on. I think it's going to be bad guys defeated, another bad guy comes, same like Marineford, but this time there's going to be no conflict resolved, but rather another conflict created. That's my analysis, that's my conclusion. Believe what you want to believe. Feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, peace.